Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Vero Beach. I am Rebecca Brack. I have the good fortune of being a lifelong UU, and we are so glad you have chosen to be with us here this morning. We are a congregation of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. People seeking to become our best selves, even as we work together to make a better world. Please know that you are welcome. Just as you come to us this morning, whether you are young or old, gay or straight, black or white, or some other wonderful shade of humanity. Whether you have a GED or a PhD, whether you are a visitor this morning or have been a member here for decades. Whether you are feeling on top of the world or down in the dumps, or somewhere in between, we are delighted to see you just as you come to us, in all your particularity and your need. We hope you find this service meaningful and enriching, and that you will find something here this morning that nourishes your spirit and feeds your soul, and gives you renewed energy for the week to come. We have a greeting this morning from Reverend Scott on his bike journey.
Well, hello everybody back in Vero, and John and Barbara, hello, I'm glad you're there. I hope you're having a good Sunday. It is Saturday, I'm getting this to you a day early. I'm in Gallup, New Mexico, and about the time that you're having worship, I'll be up and around in Albuquerque, New Mexico, taking a day off, getting ready for the next 3 weeks. I hope everything is good back in Vero. We're having today, right now, it's about 24 degrees here in Gallup. I know Vero is probably in the low 80s, so enjoy your day and keep thinking of me, and we'll see you soon.
We are a community of memory and hope which meets in the present, so please be present to this day and to what's in you, because your memory is your hope. If you remember the best you've ever done, the best you've ever said, the best you've ever thought, that's who you are. That's who you are. Let your memory be your hope in the present. We are a community of memory and hope which meets in the present, so please be present and be blessed.
Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that burns in the heart's secret places. Blessed is the heart with strength to stop its beating for honor's sake. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame.
You know, the different kinds of, quote, meditation. One is something that's led by a speaker or preacher like me, and we'll have that. And then there's what you do, whatever you do. And don't be fooled. Nobody can teach you how. You can learn techniques. But the main thing is that you find your own door to the place you need to be. And I think you usually find it by doing something you really like to do, whether it's playing the piano or cooking a good meal or gardening or building a birdhouse or whatever. When you're focused and you're really there and something special happens that makes you really present. As I say, for me, even without practice, it's sometimes finding just some ordinary song and finding out where I go with it. Let me talk about love. Love is easy to talk about. Loving is not easy. Caring is easy to talk about. Caring is not easy. Relationships, especially meaningful ones, how we love to talk about them, building them is hard. And how easily a church can become a house of words. We love all the warm, wonderful abstractions. The words are easy. The realities are hard. The realities require knowing one another and time and effort, and the stern knowledge that we will not always like one another or agree with one another or even understand one another, because we are not Prince Charmings or Sleeping Beauties, and the church is not a magic wand or a fairy godmother. The truth is, we are all frogs. And we are all waiting for all the other frogs to come close and see our warts and love and care and relate in spite of them. So our calling is not to mouth all the warm, wonderful abstractions. It's not to search for agreeable, attractive, apparently perfect people who have no edges or bumps or warts that'll sometimes rub us the wrong way. Our calling is to accept the imperfections of ourselves and others, and then take the risk of reaching out to touch and to love, knowing all the time that we might fail. It's not deodorant, but only courage that takes the worry out of being close. And only brave people try it. So beyond all the abstractions and expectations, let's pray the courage to take the risk of loving. Cancer. Lover. Trump. Pregnant. Nigga. Those are words. They're just words. But you might notice that you had a feeling response to at least one or two or maybe all of them. Words have power. Words have power because what they symbolize, what they have come to mean, what they do to connect with our own experiences. Do words move us? Yes. Do they scare us? Can you imagine that any words would scare you? I think there's a terrorist on the plane. Or how about this one? You're going on a hunting party and it will be led by former Vice President Dick Cheney. You know, some Unitarian Universalists have a strong aversion to certain words, religious words. This is a true story. It was reported in one of the district newsletters that we tend to get some years ago. There was a group of UUs in Don Heights, Ontario, which is a suburb of Toronto. They got together and they formed a group and they said, well, let's give ourselves a name and we need to put the sign up in front of our place. So, believing in the democratic principles and so on, they decided to take a vote. Let's call it the Don Heights UU Church. Nah, voted that down. What about the Don Heights Congregation? That was voted down. The Don Heights Fellowship? That was voted down. The Don Heights Society? That was voted down. So they had a sign out front that said the Don Heights. That's a true story. Words do somehow have a power for us, especially if we think we're pretty wise and smart. And I want to talk to you about a traditional word, a word that you don't hear a lot in most of our churches. It's a word that can literally empty a room. And the word is the S word, salvation. I want to say that word. I actually saw a group of grown men, a whole bunch of them, scurry from the sauna in a health club when an evangelical Christian used a variation on this word. All they had to do to initiate this disappearing act was say, are you saved? You know, I kind of wish he had said to me, do you take Jesus as your personal Savior? Because I could have said, no, I like to share. Are you taking notes on this, by the way? But he asked, are you saved? Well, I may not be braver than the average bear, but that day I was braver than the average bear man. Mere words don't scare me. Am I saved? I have to admit that I was tempted to say, saved from what? Saved from whom? But it didn't matter. I didn't yield to temptation, and my interrogator made it clear that he wanted to push the agenda. And predictably, he made it clear that he believed in a God who was ready to swat down people like flies and then fry them if they didn't accept Jesus the same way he did. Well, as diverse as we may be in our theology, as evidenced by what we sang a little earlier in the hymn, one thing that virtually all of us have agreed on is that we do not believe in a tender-egoed, vengeful, cruel God who tortures his children. I mean, even fallible, petty human beings like us, if we have any healthiness, wouldn't do that. So when this smiling evangelist asked me, are you saved? I gave him the only answer a Universalist can. I smiled and said, of course. Well, this led to dark, twisting corridors of conversation that I won't revisit this morning, but suffice to say that our conversation did not lead to concord. It did, however, lead to us being able to leave that sauna, because one of the things I said was, look, the only thing that we have to agree on is to help to make this world better for our children's children in some way. That's it. If I had felt it possible in that time, in that space, to respond more deeply to his inquiry about salvation, I would have said to him what I'll say to you this morning. Are you saved? I'm working on it. I'm working on it. How? What do I mean? Well, even though salvation is not a word that you generally hear among us a lot, at least one of my UU colleagues, someone you may know from Florida here, Katie Korb, says, salvation is all I preach. Now, how could that be? Let's look at the word. Salvation, salvation, to salve, to save from loss, to bring relief, to bring healing. In Latin, salve, hail, be in good health, to be healed, to be hailed, to be whole, to be holy. Hailed, healed, whole, holy. Those words are hardly limited to any religion, or not even to religion at all. They sound not so much like a doctrine, but like a state of being or a state of becoming, more like a process than a matter of conversion. So how does that apply to you or to me? Well, let me take you to the piano, not literally this time, but to tell you about a moment at the piano. So there I am. I'm sitting at my piano in my living room at home a while ago. And at this point, I got a tiny bit, a sort of an insight, and everything at once glance into the matter of salvation. Now, for me, playing the piano, when I'm less nervous, when I'm by myself, it's kind of fun, but it's also not just sort of art, but it's reflection and discovery. And like most conventional kinds of meditation, it can be a special room that I enter. I enter my player piano self. So I sat at the piano, my hands are poised over the keys, but before my flesh can touch the ivory, I was in reverie this time. I was taken back. I was taken back more than, hard to believe, 60 years ago. And there I am, again by a piano, but not on a piano bench, but on a wooden chair facing an upright piano. A piano so badly out of tune, it should have been called an up-wrong piano, by the way. I'm in the basement room of a large building, a high school. A few steps from the cafeteria, Lincoln High School, which is near the steel mills in Cleveland. And the odor of cooked cabbage still lingers, and large pipes protrude from the ceiling, and they are painted either gray or some kind of cream color, as is the rest of the room. The floor is wooden and well-worn, and behind me, with teacups in their laps, is a bevy of teachers. Now, even though they are significantly younger than I am today, they all looked old to me at that time. Can you relate to that? And there I am. I'm about to play, just as I am in my reverie. And I'm about to play for a singer, Janetta was her name, who's going to sing a song, and then I play a little jazz. What a day this has been, what a rare mood I'm in. And then the middle part of that song, it sounds like it came from the Psalms. All the music of life seems to be like a bell that is ringing. Okay? So it's that moment before the music starts where there's an air of polite anticipation. Polite is the key word because here are teachers who want to model what their students should be at this point, which is polite. Politeness. So back to the present. So there I am pausing, I'm leaning back from my reverie, and I realize that now, more than then, I want to play for these men and these women. I don't wish to live in the past or be in the past, but I wish more than anything that I could play as I do now for those I knew then. And I realize that my playing now is as much for them as it is for anyone else. So what's this all about? My reverie continues. I stop and I think, here were people who taught me, who tutored me as they taught and tutored thousands of others with faith and hope. Not in what we were, but in what we might someday become. They were like octogenarians who planted trees for a coming to be that they probably would not see. They planted for a fruition and a future they most probably would not be part of. And these teachers are the people I wanted to play for, to perform for now. Not out of a sense of, hey, look at me, but rather to show them that some measure of their faith had been realized. That though I am not all I might be or hope I may become, that I am more than I was. That I grew towards something hoped for by them. Something hoped for in spite of my stubborn self, in spite of my flaws, my distractions, my disturbances, my, oh God, disasters all along the way. In spite of this, something good happened. Robert Frost's words ring in my ears. They would not find me changed from him who knew, only more sure of all I thought was true. More sure of all I thought that was true. So I returned to my reverie. I realized that it was neither only or even mainly the teachers at the tea party I was revisiting or playing for. It was something deeper. It was something inside. It was an inner voice, a voice inside both me and them and all others who have mentored or loved me or other people or anyone else in the world. It was a call. And the call was to grow to become as fully human as possible. A call framed in values that make a person human. Even more, somehow, in some way that exists beyond any kind of rational thinking, it was the source of that call. In short, I was in touch with my call to salvation. That is, to be healed, to be whole, to touch the holy, as much of it as I have in my own life. Well, go back to the guy in the sauna. Am I saved? I'm working on it. So I guess I do believe in salvation. And look, just because the guy in the sauna and some of our Christian brothers and sisters have a limited vision of what salvation means, that doesn't mean that I have to or that you have to. We wouldn't surrender our voice or our votes on a woman's life right to choose, would we? So why do we surrender it on anything, including salvation? And you know, the guy in the sauna and his kin don't even hold the majority opinion among Christians. There are a variety of views. How about this one? Here's one from a learned theologian of the 20th century, Henry Nelson Wyman. I'll go through it, I guess, a couple of times. To be saved means to be controlled by a loyalty which integrates the personality and releases all its power. For what? In service of a cause that gives the most inclusive meaning to life. So, loyalty integrates personality, releases the power in the service of something beyond your own skin. Could that be salvation for us? Well, I like a simpler way of looking at it, to tell you the truth. And I like one from Frederick Buechner, writer and minister. In his book, A Wishful Thinking, he writes, "Salvation is an experience first and a doctrine second. Doing the work you're best at doing and like to do best. Hearing great music, having great fun, seeing something very beautiful, weeping at somebody else's tragedy. All these experiences are related to the experience of salvation because in them two things happen. One, you lose yourself, and two, you find that you are more fully yourself than usual. In these kind of experiences, you lose yourself, but find that you are more yourself than usual." I wonder if he was at the teacher's tea party. A little further, he writes this, "Whether you thank God for some moments or you thank your lucky stars, it's a moment that is trying to open up your whole life. And if you throw your arms around such a moment and hug it like crazy, it might save your soul. It's a process, not an event." So yes, Fred, yes. This is salvation, not in the narrow sense of declaring adherence to some doctrine, especially if you do it in a moment of high emotion, maybe in the river, but it's a process of unfolding the deepest that you aspire to be, a process that includes claiming values that transcend the limits of your own skin. Salvation is a process and a call. What's the highest and deepest you know of? What makes you more fully who you are? Once you get even a small sense of that, how can you not serve it and try to be there and try to do what being there requires of you? It is in serving the highest and deepest that we are saved. Now, the old-time Unitarians used to talk about salvation by character. I think they were optimists. The phrase salvation by character implies a completion. The truth is that in some measure, we start and we stop and we have little successes and we have loads of failure in serving what we find to be the deepest inside. The main thing is to answer the call as best we can through our full and faithful living while assessing whether you are actually assessing something that is of real value. The trouble these days is that there are so many superficial substitutes for salvation. You know, a lot of people talk now about spirituality and spiritual practice without talking about what values they are serving with this spiritual talk. One of my favorite stories, I will say it, my wife's here, she gets tired of hearing this one, is of a wedding consult I did with a couple. Typically, Unitarians and Universalists get couples that nobody else will marry. Often refer to them in Ann Lander's column. You know that? She says, if you can't get married someplace else, go see a UU minister, right? I wrote to her one time, by the way, and I said, okay, here's what happens. People say, I'm getting married next week. How would you like to do it? Or this really happened once. Haven't you found a church you're part of? We saw one we liked. What kind was it? Brick. Really happened. So she sends the people. So this young couple comes to me, and of course I want to talk to them, to get to know them, to find out about their church and so on. And this young woman, who was at most, say, 23 or 24, said to me, well, I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. And I thought, oh my goodness. I said, Jesus never said he was spiritual, let alone very spiritual. Mother Teresa never said it. You know, I can't think of any saints that ever said that. And here's this young woman, she's 23, 24, and she's very spiritual. So I said, well, what do you do? And she said, I journal. I didn't say it, but what I thought is, oh, you verb nouns. I do that sometimes myself. So I journal. So what do you journal for? What do you journal about? I mean, I think it's a good thing to do. I don't have any problems with it. But does that make you very spiritual? Katie Korb, who I referred to before, writes this: it always amazes me that people talk about doing yoga or dream work or journaling, dreadful word, she says, as if that were spiritual in itself rather than a possible path to a connection. So what do practices serve? Do they serve self-awareness or the odds-on favorite self-absorption? Is that what your teachers, your counselors, your mentors, your friends, your family, your forebears had in thought for you? The potential that they hoped you would achieve? Is that what life demands of you? What is it? So, finding what that moment is, that door is, and what it is we serve with what is deepest in us. We are thousands of years removed from the days of Joshua, but his imperative, as told in the Bible, echoes down. Choose this day whom you will serve. Choose this day what it is you're going to serve. So what or whom will you serve? And whom or what do you serve? If you know, or even if you have a hunch about it, you have a pretty good idea of what character you hope to achieve in yourself through your salvation. Salvation. It's a process you never fully finish. It's a road that ever stretches before you. It is a hill that you can never completely climb. And if that seems daunting, look at it this way. Salvation is the best unfinished job you're ever going to do. Amen. Salvation, it's a process you never fully finish, a road that ever stretches before you, a hill that you can never completely climb, and if it seems daunting, look at it this way. It's the best unfinished job you'll ever have. Amen.